So the very first thing we're going to want to do is create a new Notion page. So to do that, look in your sidebar on the left-hand side of your screen and go all the way up until you see this little icon right here. This is the create a new page icon, so go ahead and click on it. And then here we have our brand new blank Notion page. So I always like to create my Notion templates without this sidebar kind of taking up space on my screen here. So to close this, just click on this button right here. And then we also want to make sure that we're designing in full width. So go to the upper right hand corner of your screen and click on these three dots and then toggle on this option that says full width. And then that's going to make all of the elements in our Notion template stretch all the way across the screen. So the very first thing we're going to do here is add a Notion cover. Mouse over on the top of your screen and then you're going to see this add cover option. So just go ahead and click it. And then Notion is going to automatically add a default cover, but we're going to change it and add our own. So click this change cover option. And then I'm going to go to upload, and then I'm just going to upload my file from my desktop. So I put this banner together using a mix of Canva and Photoshop. And if you're wondering what the dimensions are for this banner, they are 1500 by 600 pixels. So the actual banner actually looks something like this. And I have a lot of space up here at the top and bottom so that it is optimized for mobile view also. But of course, this is how it appears on desktop. And then moving on, I also like to add a little icon right here. So to do that, just mouse over this area here and click on add icon. And then Notion is going to add a default emoji, but I'm going to click on this bear one. Next, we are going to title our Notion. So all we have to do is where it says new page here, just click and then just start typing. So for now, I'm just going to title mine Notion setup. And by the way, I do also have this banner available as a free Canva template. So if you want to use this design but change out the text, you can. So those are kind of the initial steps that I always take to set up any Notion template. But now we're going to start really getting into it and putting together our welcome section. And we're going to start by adding a couple widgets. So we're going to add a clock widget and a calendar widget. And to do that, you're going to want to go to widgetbox.app and go ahead and sign in or make a free account if you haven't already. Then from this page, you're going to go and navigate to clocks here on the left-hand side, and then digital clock, and then choose customize and embed. And then you're going to see this page where you're going to customize your widget, and you're going to input all of your customizations here on the right-hand side. For the background color, the hex code I'm using is 9F775A. It's this really pretty warm brown color. For the text color, you're going to do FFFCF5. This is a nice off-white color. The rounded corners are going to be medium, and then the clock type, this is going to be 12-hour or 24-hour. So this is really based just on your preference. And then once you have everything customized, go up to the top and click on copy embed URL. This is going to give you a link that you can paste in your Notion. So if we go back to our Notion, all we have to do is paste it in. Then it's going to paste in our link and this little menu is going to come up. So from here, you're just going to click on embed. And then as you can see, we have our cute little clock widget right here. So let's go ahead and do the same thing for our calendar widget. So for the calendar widget, you're going to go back to this sidebar menu here in widgetbox.app and then go down until you see calendar, then click on simple calendar. And then again, click on customize and embed. Of course, you can add whatever customizations you want, but if you want to replicate this look, here are the customizations that I'm currently using. So for your calendar background and your header text color, the hex code is going to be FFFCF5. And then for calendar text color, header background, and border color, the hex code is going to be 9F775A. And then I'm also going to make the border width 2. And then do large rounded corners. And then once we're done, let's go ahead and copy our embed URL. Then we're going to go back to Notion and just click on a blank area on the page and then paste. Then go and select embed. And then we have our calendar widget right there. So we're going to arrange these more in a minute, but for now, let's move on to the next part of this welcome section. We're going to add some little sections for important links, notes, and reminders. So go below your widgets here and mouse over anywhere on the blank area of your page. And then you're going to see these two icons come up. Go ahead and click on the plus and then click on call out in the menu that comes up. And then you're going to see this bar appear. So let's go ahead and change the color of this. To do that, make sure you're mousing over it and then click on this little dots icon, then click on color, and then go down and click on gray background. And then it automatically set the icon as the brown heart emoji because that's the last one that I used. But if you wanted to change this, you would just click on it and then select one from the menu that comes up. And if you wanted to remove it, all you'd have to do is click on remove up here. But since I like the brown heart the way it is, I'm just going to click out of this. So let's go ahead and type a title for this little section. So I'm going to start with important links. So just click inside of it and then start typing. And then I want to change the color of this text to brown to make it all match. So I'm going to highlight it. And then we're going to have this menu pop up here. So I'm going to go ahead and click the text color option all the way on the right, and then just find the brown option. And I'm also going to select bold. Okay, now let's press enter and start adding some bullet points. To add a bullet point, go ahead and click on this plus icon. And then in this menu, look for bulleted list and click on it. And then we have our first bullet point. So I'm just going to add a default like list item. And then let's go ahead and change the color of both of these. So mouse over this and click on the dots, and then click on color, and then click on brown text. And then I want to add a few more bullet points, so I'm going to duplicate this a few times. To do that, click on the dots and then click on duplicate. And then we're just going to do that for however many times we want. So I'm going to do this 3 more times, so we have a total of 5 list items. And then there we have a little section for important links. Next, we're going to do notes and reminders, and they're basically going to look exactly the same as this. So to make this process a little bit easier, I'm just going to duplicate this. To do that, mouse over it and click on the dots, and then select duplicate. So I'm going to change out this heading to notes, and I only want 3 list items in the notes section. So I'm just going to click on the dots and then select delete, and then just do this 2 more times. And then for the reminders section, I'm going to duplicate this 1 more time. So mouse over it and click on the dots and then click on duplicate. And then I'm just going to change out this header to reminders. Okay, so now we have 2 widgets and we have 3 little sections, so we can start kind of arranging this welcome section the way we want it. So I want to move this over to the right of these widgets here, and to do that we are going to mouse over it and then find this little dots icon again, and all we're going to do is click and drag to move. So we're just going to do that. And then I'm going to do the same thing for this reminders section here and just move it right under there. And then for this little notes section, I actually want to put it in between these. So let's go ahead and do like that. And then let's just move this calendar widget underneath the clock here. So now we have something that kind of looks like this. And we're almost done putting together this little welcome section. So the last thing we're going to do is add our wish list widget. I do want to add a little call out for a section header there. So let's go ahead and click anywhere on the bottom of the page, and then kind of mouse over it and click the plus icon, and then go to call out. And then anytime you add a call out, it should use the same customizations as the last time you used one. So you can see I have my gray background here, and again we have the little brown heart emoji. And then I'm just going to type what I want for the header, so I'm just going to do wish list. And then of course I want to make this bold and brown, so just highlight it. And then we can make it bold here, and then go over to the text color option, click on it, and select brown. And then what I'm going to want to do is click and drag this over to the right hand side, and we're just going to move it all the way over here. And then that's going to create these 3 kind of columns in our welcome section. So let's go ahead and add our image. Mouse over here and click the plus icon, and then click on image. And then I'm just going to upload my image file from my desktop. And then the last thing we're going to do is basically just some adjustments to the sizing and spacing. So I like to add an extra little space in between callout sections like this, just to make it look a little bit more clean. So you can actually click and drag a blank space from anywhere in your Notion. And to do that, you're just going to click on a blank area, and then grab this little dots icon right here and click and drag, and we're just going to move this underneath the call out. And then we're just going to do the same thing 1 more time and move it underneath there. And then I'm just going to do that 1 more time and move it underneath this heading here. Okay, so that's definitely looking better. Next thing is I want to make these 2 widgets the same width. So if you'll notice when I mouse over this calendar widget, we have these handlebars that appear. So you can click and drag these to adjust the sizing and spacing of your widget. So I'm just going to drag on this bottom one to make this bigger until it's the same width as the clock. And I think I actually want to drag 1 more spacer in between these 2 right there. And then if you mouse in between these columns here, you're going to see this long gray bar appear. So if you click and drag on this, this is going to allow you to adjust the sizing and spacing a little bit more. So I'm just going to do this until I like the sizing of all of these items here. And after some adjustment, this is how things are looking right now. Really, really cute. We have our banner up here and then our completed little welcome section. So as you can see, I usually like to try and make everything kind of line up here at the bottom. But with this being complete, let's go ahead and move on to the next section. So this next section is going to be the weekly to-do section, and this is going to be pretty straightforward. We're going to make a little area for each day of the week with some checkboxes underneath. And of course, I always want to start with a heading, so just click or mouse over on a blank area of your page, click the plus icon, and click on callout. And then let's go ahead and name it weekly to-do. I'm going to highlight this and make it bold and also change the color to brown. And then to make our first little section, I think I'm just going to duplicate this call out here because I also want to use this style for those section headers. But I do want to remove this icon, so I'm going to click on it. And then at the top, just click on remove, and then that'll get rid of the icon. So let's go ahead and change this to Monday. So just click on it, highlight, and then just type. And I'm going to highlight this and change the text color to brown. And this time I'm not going to make it bold. So let's click on the blank area below this and then click the plus icon. And then we're going to scroll down until we see to-do list. So just click on that and then go ahead and add some sample text here. So I'm just going to do list item. And then I'm going to change the color here by clicking on the dots, going to color, and then clicking on brown text. So that looks pretty good. Then I'm going to duplicate this 2 more times until we have a total of 3. So again, click on the dots and then select duplicate, and 1 more time. And then this is the format we're going to use for each of the days. So I'm just going to duplicate this for each day. And then I'm just going to click and drag over it to highlight everything. And then we're going to duplicate. And then we're just going to keep doing this until we have sections for each day of the week, plus 1 extra for a weekly goals section. And then I'm just going to change all of these headings here. And then I have all of my sections formatted and ready to go. And the next thing we're going to do is just arrange everything. So let's start with this Tuesday section. I'm going to click and drag over it to select everything. And then click the dots and drag it all the way over to the right of the Monday section. So it looks like that. And then of course, I'm just going to move these back up like that. And then I'm just going to keep repeating that until everything is arranged how I want. So I'm just going to do 4 on the top and 4 on the bottom. So I have this arranged like this right now. And then I'm going to add an extra spacer underneath this header here. So let's just click and drag a little extra space from the bottom and just move it right there. And then the weekly to-do section is complete. Next, I'm going to show you how to make a little mood board section. This is really simple. It's probably going to be the easiest section we're going to make today. But to start, I'm just going to duplicate this header up here, and then we're just going to move it down below. And then I'm going to change this text to say mood board. And then of course we have to fix the text styling. So I'm going to highlight it and then make it bold and then change the text color to brown. And then there we have our little heading. And then next we're going to start adding in some images. So click anywhere below your heading here and then look for the little plus icon and click on it. And then you're going to click on image. And then all we're going to do is upload any of the images that we want to use for our mood board from our desktop. So I've got all of my images uploaded here, and obviously we have to arrange them. So I'm going to do this one first and just going to click and drag using this dots icon. And then I'm going to move it to the right of the first image. And then I uploaded 5 images in total. So I'm just going to do that for all 5 and keep adding them to the right. Okay, so this is the orientation that I want them in, but we do have to crop them, and we can crop them directly in Notion, which is really nice. You can also pre-crop them like in another program before you import them into Notion, which is also really convenient to do, but for the sake of this tutorial, I wanted to leave them uncropped so I could show you how to do it right in Notion. And it's really easy. All we're going to do is mouse over an image and then click this little dots icon in the upper right hand corner here. And then we're just going to go down and look for the option that says crop image. And then I want to crop these into a perfect square. So I'm going to click this here at the top and then select square. And then we can just move the square around until we get the crop that we want. But I'm going to leave it all the way up here at the top. And then when we're done, just click save. Then I'm just going to do the same thing for this image and this image. The other two are already cropped into squares, so I don't have to worry about them. And then we are almost done with our mood board section. I actually really like the order that these images are already in, so I'm just going to leave them as is. But of course, if you want to, you can click and drag things around to change up the order. And then the last thing I'm going to do is just click and drag an empty space from down here, and then just move it underneath the header. And then that is the completed mood board section. The next section we're going to make is going to be the weekly schedule section. So I always like to start with the header, and for that I'm just going to duplicate this one here. So click the dot and then click on duplicate and then use the dots to drag this below. Then I'm just going to change out this text to say weekly schedule. Then I'm just going to highlight this and make the text bold and then change it to brown. And now we're ready to start actually putting together our schedule. So for this, we are going to use Notion databases, but it's going to be very, very simple, very beginner friendly. We're just going to have a very clean table format. So just click anywhere on the blank area of your page, mouse over the area and click the plus button, and then scroll down until you see table and click on it. And then we have a default table right here. So we're going to want to turn this into a database so that way we can store information more efficiently in it. So mouse over this table here and click the dots icon. And then at the top, click turn into database. And then you're going to see that Notion has automatically added some default headers right here. And we've also got some other options up here and down below. So these are all different things that we can do to our database, but let's start simple by just naming this. So if we click here where it says new database, I'm just gonna call this weekly schedule. And then I actually like to hide this title here just so that things look a little cleaner. And to do that, just click on this little icon with the 3 dots over to the right, and then scroll down and click on hide database title. So then it should look like that. So next we're going to customize the amount of columns that we have, and we're going to want 8 total. So we're going to have a column all the way on the left for where we put our time, and then we're going to have 7 other columns for each day of the week. So before we do that, let's just quickly name these. So we're just going to click on it, and then in this text box here, I'm just going to put time/day, and then I'm going to click on this one, and we're just going to do Monday, and then this one I'm going to do Tuesday. And then we're going to add some more columns for each day of the week. So to do that, we're just going to press this little plus button right here that says add property. And then we're just going to type to name our column. So the next one is going to be Wednesday. And then I'm just going to keep doing that all the way until Sunday. So we are going to adjust the spacing here in a minute. But first, I want to customize the little icons at the top here next to the headers for the columns. So let's just click on it. And then we're just going to click on it again right here. And then I think for this one, I'm just going to do a little calendar icon. And then for the ones next to the days of the week, I think I'm actually going to do weather icons. And this will kind of be meant to symbolize what the weather is going to be like on that given day. So if you were using this to plan your week ahead of time, you could know what the weather is going to be each day. So I'm just going to go ahead and change those icons now. So now I've got cute little weather icons next to all of the days of the week. And then I want to adjust all of the column widths so that they all fit on our Notion page without me having to scroll. So to do that, all I'm going to do is mouse over at the top here next to the name. And then we're going to see this little blue bar appear, and all we're going to do is just click and drag that. So I'm just going to play around with this a little bit until everything is evenly spaced and it all fits on the page. Okay, so that looks pretty decent. The next thing we're going to do is add our times in this column over here. And I'm going to add 12 of them. I'm going to do 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. But you can really do whatever times you want for this. So I'm just going to click in this box right here and start typing. And then I'm just going to do that going down until I get to 7 p.m. And when I want to add a new row, I'm just going to click this add new page option right here. And then that's going to go ahead and add a new row for us. So I've got all of my times added here. And then the next thing I'm going to do is update the icons next to all of the times here. And I'm going to add a little clock emoji next to each one. So let's just click on this. And then underneath emoji, I'm just going to search up clock. And then I want to choose the clock that will correspond with the time. So for 7 a.m., let's just look for the one that says 7 o'clock. And if we mouse over it, it will just tell us the time right there. So this one is 7 o'clock. So let's just click on that. And then I'm just going to do that for all of these times here. So now I have all of my clock emojis added in, and this is looking really, really cute. We're almost done with this weekly schedule. Another important note for these columns here is we just want to make sure they're all the type of database property that will allow us to type in these boxes here. So I'll show you what I mean. If we click on Monday here and go to change type, these are all of the types of information that we can have in a Notion database. And we want these columns to be selected to text. So for example, with Thursday here, if we click on it and then go to change type, Notion added this one in as a date. And we don't want that because then if we click on a box here, Notion is going to prompt us to input a date. And we don't want that. We just want to be able to type in these boxes here. So if we go back to the change type box here, we're just going to want to make sure text is selected. And we're going to want to make sure that that is the case for all of our columns. Now that I've done that, I just want to add a little bit of space underneath the header here. So I'm going to do what I always do and drag a blank space from below up underneath the header. And then that is looking a lot cleaner. And then the last thing we're going to do for this section is create a clear table button. And then this is going to allow us to clear the table with the click of a button instead of having to go in and manually delete everything, which is going to make it so much easier. So I'm just going to quickly go in and add some sample text so I can demonstrate the button a little better. Okay, so now let's create our button. So click underneath your table here and then type / and then button. And then before I've even finished typing button, we have this little menu come up here. So I'm just going to click on button. And then here what we have is the options to create our button. So up here next to the smiley face where it says new button, we're going to type in the text that we want to display on our button. So for this, I'm just going to type clear table. And then for the smiley face, if we click on this, we can add an icon to our button. So I am just going to select this little right arrow. And then down here where it says do and it says add new action, this is where we're going to be able to add the action that we want to happen when our button is clicked. So in this case, we want to have it clear our table. So let's just click on new action. Then we're going to go to edit pages in. Then where it says select data source, we're going to click on it. And we want to make sure it's editing from the table above, which we named weekly schedule. So we're going to click on weekly schedule. And then below, we're going to want to edit all of the properties in this table. So that means all of the columns that we have for our time and days of the week. So we're just going to click on this and then add all of these in. So just click on it. Make sure you have all of the days of the week added, but leave out your property that says time or day because we don't want that to be impacted at all. And then once you're done, click done. And then we have our clear table button ready to go. So if we click it, you can see that our table is cleared, but we still have our times intact right here. And then that is the weekly schedule section complete. So our final section is going to be our reading tracker, and for this we're going to follow a lot of the same steps that we just followed to make the weekly schedule, because this is also going to be a table database, so it's going to be very similar. And to start, we're going to make a header, so let's just duplicate this one right here and then just drag that below. And then I'm just going to drag an extra space above it right here, and then let's rename this to reading tracker. Then I'm going to highlight this text, and of course I'm going to make it bold and turn the text brown so that it matches everything else. And then we have our heading all set. So let's go ahead and make another table database for our reading tracker. So click below your heading, and then click on the plus icon, and then click on table. Then mouse over the table and click the 6 dots, and then click turn into database. For this database, we're going to name it reading tracker or whatever you want. And then I'm going to click these 3 dots over here, go down and click on hide database title. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to click down here and drag an extra space below the header. Okay, so let's name these first couple of columns here. So for this database, I only want to have 4 total columns. They are going to be title, author, status, and rating. So let's start off with title. I'm going to make that one the left column all the way over here. And this is actually already named title, but I'm just going to click on it and make that first T lowercase just for styling purposes. And then this one, we're going to click on it and put in author. This one is going to be status, and then we're going to click the plus to add one more column, and this one is going to be rating. And then I'm going to mouse over at the top and find these blue handlebars and just click and drag everything and adjust the spacing a little bit. Okay, I think something like that will work. These first 2 columns are going to have a lot more text and information than the last 2, so I wanted them to be bigger. But let's go ahead and make sure these columns all have the right property type. So these 2 I just want to be text because I'm just going to be typing in the title and author in each of them. So I'm going to click on author and go to change type, and we can see that it's already set to text. So we're all good there, and then same thing for title. And then for status and rating, I want the property type to be select. So that is going to allow us to select from multiple options. So for example, if we're editing the status, we could select from TBR or red. So to change it, just click on it and then go to change type and then click on select. And then we're going to do the same thing here, although this one is already set to select, so we're all good. Next, I want to change the little icons next to title and author. So I'm just going to click on them and then click on it again in this little menu. And this one, I want to make a little book, so maybe that one. And then for this one, I think I want to make it a little pencil. And then these 2, I'm just going to leave as is. So now let's go ahead and set our options for these 2 properties. So like I said before, for status, we're going to want to make the options TBR or red. And then for rating, we're going to add an option for 1 star, 2 stars, all the way up to 5 stars. So let's start with status. We're going to click on the box below the title. And then all we have to do to create a status is just start typing. So let's just do TBR and then press enter. And then we have our first status created. So let's go ahead and just click on it again and start typing to add our second status option, which is going to be red, and then press enter. And then I do want to change the colors of them, so I'm just going to click on it. And then for each one, I'm going to mouse over it and click on these three dots over at the right, and then click on brown. And then I'm just going to do the same thing here. Perfect. And now let's do the same thing for the rating. So we're going to click on it and then just start typing. So I'm actually just going to paste in a star symbol and then press enter. And then I'm just going to repeat that until I have an option for 1 through 5 stars. Okay, so now I have options for 1 star all the way through 5 stars. So then I'm just going to do the same thing I did before and click on the dots to change all of these colors to brown. And then if we're using our table and we want to change the status, all we have to do is click on the box, and then our options are going to show up right here, and then we can just click on the one that we want. And then in these boxes, we can just start typing. So I just have that as an example, but if we want, we could also change this icon here. So I'm just going to add this little book. And then the last thing we have to do is make our clear table button. So the steps are going to be almost exactly the same as the ones we followed when making this button up here for the weekly schedule. So let's go ahead and make our button. So to start, click on a blank area below your table and then type slash and then button, then click on button, and we're going to have this little menu pop up here. So where it says new button, we want to type the text that we want it to say on our button. So again, I'm just going to do clear table. For the icon, I'm going to do the same thing and select the right arrow. Down here where it says do, you're going to click on new action, then go to edit pages in, click on select data source, and then make sure you select reading tracker. Then we're going to add all of our properties here, and for this one we want to add all of them. And then we can just leave these blank and click on done. And then the actual reading tracker is done, so if we click on clear table, that's going to clear everything for us. And then the very last thing we're going to do is add a widget. So mouse over on the bottom and click on image, then upload file, and then select your image from your desktop. Then we're just going to drag our image over to the right here. And now that I've added the image in, I'm just going to take our reading tracker and drag it to the left of the image. And then I'm going to move this clear table button underneath the reading tracker. Then I'm just going to click and drag some things around until I like the orientation and the sizing and spacing of everything. And then that is everything for this tutorial.